Welcome to the Living Consciously TV show. We're coming to you live from our Denver, Colorado studios. I'm your host and your moderator, Coach Steve Toth, and our theme today is evolution of intimacy as we age. And let me introduce you to our guest cast as well as our entire relationship evolution cast. Our guest cast today is Phil Parker, and he's joining us from the beautiful city of Atlanta, and he's also an author. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. Happy to be here.
Good to have you. And we also have Ninan de Rosa. She is part of our relationship cast, and she's joining us from the beautiful city of Las Vegas. Welcome to the show, Ninan.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Phil, for coming on the show.
Awesome. And then we also have Jaime Lerner. She is also part of our relationship cast, and she's joining us from Chicago, Illinois. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
Last but not least, from down under, Linda Dyer. She's also part of our relationship cast, and she's, of course, joining us from Australia. Welcome to the show early in the morning.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so this is a relationship evolution show, so my leading question is for Phil. What are the common misconceptions about aging?
Well, I can only speak from my own experience, but I think that aging is a state of mind. And I think we tell ourselves that because we're getting older in terms of chronological years, that should mean that our bodies are getting older and our intimacy should be coming less and less. And I don't buy into that notion at all.
I agree 100%.
Okay, so why is it that you can look at two people, both of them are, let's say, 60 years old, and one of them actually looks 80, and the other one looks only 49?
Well, I think that has to do with lifestyle. I think age is a state of mind. I think the way we age is determined by our lifestyle, and if we lead an active and exciting lifestyle, we tend to age in years, but not so much in physical appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think hasn't it got something to do with our genetics as well? Like, aging to me also, like you, is an attitude. And what about the language that we were brought up around? That I'm too old for that, or I can't do that anymore. You'll have to help me with that. I'm wondering how much that plays a part in the way somebody else then has their language around aging.
I think Go ahead, Ninan.
No, you go ahead, Phil. Go.
No, I think what Linda's saying is very true. I was listening to Dr. Oz the other night, and he said lifestyle is 2/3 lifestyle, 1 part genetics determines how we age, how we physically age.
I have found that as men are aging, that they are actually more open to intimacy. And it's interesting because I think that as men get older, they are more vulnerable and more open, and something shifts within them that I think women, certainly my age, wish that had happened earlier, sooner. And I think that it becomes almost, we're in two totally different places. Women have already been there, raised the children, had that time to be available to their partner intimately, and now they're kind of in a different place, wanting to do something different, and men now are the opposite. They've been out working, and now they're ready to start doing something like creating a relationship. And what I have found is that it's challenging for couples who are aging and are either growing together because they're addressing the differences, or moving apart because they're not addressing the differences.
I think it's a lot to do with the woman keeping herself up to keep attracted to the man. When he comes home, hi darling, how are you, and the whole bit when they're first married, and then after 10 or 15 years, go and put the garbage out, or why are you so late, or, they jump in there, and this kind of shifts the relationship a little bit. And I think if women women are the ones, actually. If a man starts to date a woman or wants to date a woman, it's up to the woman to say yes, not the man. The man starts first by wanting to, and if she says no, it's no. If she says yes, it's yes. So I think the same thing happens when you get older. And when the woman's sort of backing off, or she's not looking after herself, and she doesn't really care that much because she's got very used to the marriage, but he's still a man, because a man is a man is a man and always wants his sex. So I think it's like, the woman has to really jump in a little bit more like she was when she first started.
But I think it's not as much about the sex. I mean, the sex is important, but it seems to me that men are wanting more intimacy.
Okay, so hang on for a second. I just want to encourage everybody, because we're going down at a path that I don't want to go down on, which is I'd like to have everybody speak from personal experience, please.
Okay, I would like to speak from personal experience.
Thank you, Linda.
Let's do it.
I would like to speak from personal experience. That I am actually married to a man who is 11 years older than myself, and that we are in very different places in our current situation and our life, because he is wanting to be more nesting and wanting to be more interested in establishing relationships and more interested in things that I'm, quite frankly, am not as interested in. So, and I see that with people my age in relationships. So that's my personal experience, as well as experience that I have coaching clients who are in similar situations. I also noticed that my male clientele seems more open and vulnerable and requesting, looking for more intimacy in their relationships, and are kind of confused about the power that their spouses are feeling as women today. So that's my personal experience.
Which you're going through right now, right?
All right,
Yes.
so I think I'm having a similar experience in life that maybe Phil has. I happen to have a lot of women around me, and in addition to what I do on Living Consciously TV and what we do here, you may have noticed, and the viewers may have noticed, that we have much more female cast members than we have male. So I'm kind of curious and also kind of dumbfounded what you just said. But that's your experience, Jamie, and I respect your experience. But I also own another network, an internet television network, and my experience is the same there, and has been for the last 9 years, that women are much more open to this conversation of relationships, of emotions, of going deeper and looking than men are. So where am I off here?
You're off. Go ahead, Phil.
Oh, well, I don't know that you're off or not, Steve. It's been my own experience, and because my wife has a huge nationwide women's organization, I've had over 3,500 women in my home over the last 10 years. So you might call that an estrogen fix. I call it getting to know the other sex a little bit better. But what I really want to say is from my own experience that as my wife and I age together, we seem to get to know each other better. And when you know each other better, it brings openness, it brings intimacy, it brings loyalty, and a better understanding of what each of our needs are. And we're more willing to express our needs to each other because we're more comfortable with each other. And I think that comes as your partnership, whatever that partnership may be, evolves.
Well, I have a different situation because I'm single at the moment now. I say at the moment because I don't want to stay single. But I was married for 29 years, and I had a most incredible marriage. But what I did see that sort of every 5-10 years it changed to something else, and it got, like you said, Phil, you get to know each other more, and you get more relaxed, and you understand each other. We had an incredible romance. We held hands for years, always held hands. And when he passed away, it was not devastating to me because he was 17 years older than me. So, but the intimacy was incredible. Everything was really good, really, really, really good. But now that I'm single, it's like I don't seem to be able to not find, because I'm not really looking. But I see the attention of men at the moment. I'm living in Vegas, so it's a little different here with the men's situation, and I'm trying to sort of meet somebody the same age as I'm roughly. And they're just hopeless. They're just the way they dress, the way they look, the way they are. I don't even want to go near any of them. And so I find it very difficult that a single man now, what I see in my kind of age bracket, which will say between, I don't know, 55 and 75, that's 20 years. That's pretty cool. That means I'm in the middle somewhere. and it's very difficult. I just don't have that feeling for them or that thing for them. And I don't know if it's them or it's me. I don't know what it is. But it's just very, very difficult to find a partner at my age right now.
I'm wondering if, like, Nina, it's very interesting what you were saying. It's really interesting listening to all of you, actually. But I'm wondering, as the baby boomers, like you were saying, Amy, we grow through that time where we have that massive amount of intimacy and relationship, and we raise our children, and life's just an absolute buzz. We fit in everything. We just seem to be fitter than ever. The sexual side of it and the intimacy side is really high, and the relationships with everyone else is really high. And then all of a sudden, as our children grow up, in my case, as my son grew up and he moves on and gets his life, I decide to go out and have my life, and that I become intimate with my career. And it was really interesting because I found that as I was attracted to people that wanted to be a part of my world, that if they in any way interfered with my career or the relationship I had with my career, I would let them go.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Simply because I had given myself and I had to be very careful because I'm a very intimate person. I was asked to be married that many times.
Well, what does that mean, though? What does that mean, Linda? I want to go a little bit deeper. What do you mean by being intimate? Because I don't want the viewers to misunderstand that what we mean about intimacy is just sex. There's more to that.
No, I'm not talking sex. I'm not talking sex. I'm not talking sex.
Well, intimacy is sex.
No,
it's a very
isn't.
small part of it.
No, it isn't.
No, it's not.
I
No, it's
respectfully disagree.
No, it's
Well,
a very small part.
Well, a lot of people think it is then.
Yes.
No, to me,
A lot of people think it is. Maybe we all know it's not. But a lot of people out there, I'm talking about our audience, they think intimacy means having sex. Most people.
Yeah,
It's a
for me,
very
So explain what it is.
For me, that's not accurate, okay? So
So
intimacy,
explain it.
I can be intimate with somebody and not have sex with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would
Same.
agree with that.
Yes.
So to me, it was like I love people. I genuinely love people. So I would hug other people. I would hug men. And I remember going to America, and this guy writes to me and proposes to me. I'm going, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And I had to calm down and really hold back on the fact that I really genuinely loved that person and who they were. Not for me to have a long-term relationship with, but I genuinely respected who they were and who they are and what they're doing, and loved the relationship that we had. However, it was taken so many times the wrong way. So I had to start being very careful. I actually spoke to Bob Proctor about this, and Bob Proctor said, by the way, everybody, he said, sex is a creative urge.
Which men have all the time.
Which means you can actually put your energy into your work and get that same, I remember actually talking to a personal development teacher, and I said, do you get horny? Do you get horny when you speak? And he said, Linda, that's very personal. I said, well, no, I'm asking a very genuine question. Are you intimate with the audience? Are you, does that turn you on? Do you feel amazing because it's your passion, it's your world, you love what you're doing? And so all of a sudden it's like you're intimate with the whole aspect of who you are and what you're doing and what you're presenting.
See, I actually think that sex is a byproduct of intimacy.
Yes, it
Thank
is.
you. I do too.
I feel the same way. And by the way, what does the ability to be vulnerable has to do with intimacy?
Well, I think that when you are vulnerable, you're open to connecting. First, you're connected to yourself, and you're open to connecting with another and sharing that openness with another. And I think that men are busy when they are in their career, and that doesn't necessarily occur to them, and then they express that through sex, which I think men can express their sense of intimacy through sex. However, I think that there is, once again, a shift that occurs when men are not as busy with work and are looking for something other than just sex.
Okay, so this is for all the viewers, okay? So what does vulnerability or the ability to be vulnerable looks like and feels like? Anybody?
Well, for me, being vulnerable means being open and be willing to share and being willing to be honest. And I might make a comment. You know, we're living in an age of overflow. I mean, we're information overload. And it's very difficult in this age to find time to be intimate and to be communicative and to be responsive to the needs of other people. And furthermore, I think if you're not comfortable in your own skin and you're not comfortable with yourself, it then becomes extremely difficult to let somebody else into your space.
I think that's true.
I agree.
Absolutely right on. Right.
I agree wholeheartedly, Phil. I think the openness and that honesty of, and not, you know, having to think about anything else other than your openness and honesty is then you're vulnerable. And is that a good thing? How many people are afraid of that today?
Would you say that a lot of people are pretending in relationships and
Absolutely.
And that's why
Absolutely.
And that's
right.
one of the reasons they don't want to. Well, why do people pretending to begin with? Why are they doing that?
Oh, because go ahead, Nina.
Normally, women are doing it for money, financial situations, to actually have enough to be financially okay. A lot of women do that, and I'm in a place that they do it all the time. So that's probably why I'm saying it.
And most men, I think, have a facade of what they portend themselves to be, but that's not who they really are.
Why do they do that?
Well, they project that facade to project manlyhood or to protect dominance, to protect that, you know, we are the cavemen of the old and we're going to provide for everybody. And most men are not in touch with their own inner consciousness, if you will.
And I'm wondering, Phil, how many women and or men don't feel complete unless they have that partner, that intimate partner with them. So that I noticed when my relationship sort of dissolved a few years ago, we no longer get invited, another lady was saying the same, to the dinner parties anymore. It's quite interesting because I feel really comfortable in my own skin. So my home is in my body, and so I can take my body anywhere and feel at home. However, a lot of people are not like that. They feel that they're not complete unless they have a partner with them. And so they're not complete within their own self-identity. And so when they leave a partner, it's like, oh my gosh, who am I? I don't equal anything anymore. Society doesn't look at me as anybody or anything. It's quite interesting.
I agree,
Okay,
but
so-
it's just, okay.
Yeah,
I just
want to switch for a few minutes here, because although that our theme is about intimacy and about relationships and the evolution of intimacy as we age, but I also want to address the younger generation. So let me just give a quick example from my own life, and this has happened to me several times when I met someone, and let's say, you know, I'm in my 20s, right, and I meet someone, and I'm immediately I feel so much love for that person and for myself that I fall in love with them. And I fall in love with, really, as I'm learning this, or I've learned this, is I am falling in love with some idea about that person. Like it's really not the real person that I'm falling in love with. It's the idea of the person and how I want them to be. And then we go on for the first 6 or 8 months, and everything is wonderful. Both of us are putting our best foot forward. And then all of a sudden, because they start showing up, like we stop pretending, and we start showing up as the real person, I'm starting to notice that that person, the person I fall in love with, is not the ideal person that I first fall in love with. And I start judging, or at least in the past I have, and I'm beginning to be disappointed that they're not turning out the way I wanted, the way I pictured it that they would turn out. How does this sound to any of you? Does any of you?
It's exactly
that's
it's
dating.
exactly how it happens. It's exactly how it happens. If you look at there's a movie, The Two of Us, and there's 6 people in the bed. So you've got him and her, and you've got his parents and her parents, and they're having an argument. And it would depend on the parent inside their head as to how they're talking about the problem. It's really fascinating. What happens is when 2 people come together, you tend to attract your subconscious mind. And so you will bring up the parent that's most like who you have copied. And that goes along smooth. We're all in love. It's happy. Everything's hunky-dory. And all of a sudden, as you say, that 3 to 6 months, it's usually around 3 actually, 3 months, the other person feels really safe in the relationship. In fact, both of you do, that all of a sudden the other parent comes up. That's inside. And then this exactly happened to me too, Steve. And I turned around and I went, who are you? Like, what on earth has gone on? Who is this person you've become? He brought up his father, who was very similar to, in that movie, Catch Me If You Can. The guy that kept writing the blank checks and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going, who is this man? And he became quite violent, and I thought, oh my gosh, I never saw this. And that's reality of what happens inside someone's subconscious mind.
Yeah.
So it's about that for 3 months. We're very amazingly comfortable until the other parent comes up. If your parents are very similar, there won't be much of a difference. But if the parents are very different, then you can see a dramatic difference in the other person that you're with.
Well,
So I think,
Of dating,
yeah,
though, isn't it? I
what
mean,
we're doing
dating
right
is-
now, actually, what we're doing right now is describing what I call human love. This is how humans love, okay? Now, I would love to talk about the difference between human love and divine love for a few minutes. So how do you feel, or what do you feel the difference is between human love and divine love?
It's probably chemistry.
And can we, are humans
No.
actually capable of loving another human being, including themselves, divinely? And what does that
Only,
mean?
no, only if we love ourselves first. And that
Yeah.
really, we are always looking for love in all the wrong places, because the most important relationship that we ever have is with ourselves. And the first love affair we need to have is with ourselves. And when that occurs, then we can only love the person that we've attracted into our experience unconditionally. And that's how it goes. So yes, and yes.
Yeah, so you just actually said the word unconditionally, which for me is like the biggest thing on the planet when we're talking about relationships is, can we love ourselves just the way we are, and can we love another just the way they are?
Yes, because if we
Yes.
love ourselves, we are so happy to attract the person who can be themselves into our experience.
But I also think that it's very difficult for most people to love themselves because of the expectations that they put on themselves that may or may not come to reality. So if you expect to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or you expect to look like, Marilyn Monroe, and you don't meet those expectations, how then do you get in touch with your own self-worth, self-being, whatever you want to call it, your divine spirit, I think.
Well, I think this is, and I hate to say that in talking about men, but I think that this is what happens, that after men get older, they realize that they can actually relax into who they are, that they start to become introspective and interested in something that is not outside of themselves. And that is a lovely process for men that I have seen. Now, Phil and Steve, it would be wonderful if you could share with us your personal experiences as aging men, because we're all aging. And if in fact you have found that you are more able to, as you are getting older, to be more introspective and interested in what is within.
Okay. Well, I love to share. I have been celibate for the last 9 years, okay, because I got sick and tired of the stuff that I used to do before that, which is everything for me occurred as sex. And all the relationships that I ever been in before that was for sex. And I just got sick and tired of it. it just got to the point where it became empty and meaningless. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Well,
I would think so, yeah.
And so I figured that nobody can really get a handle on this other than myself. And I went into that situation that idea that Phil was talking about, which is you got to know yourself. I realized that I had no idea who the hell I was. That's why I constantly looked for, I mean, for me, sex was equal to approval of who I am and that they love me. That's what I made up about it.
In other words, you didn't love yourself.
Correct.
Well,
I
you didn't know yourself.
Well, I didn't love myself
You didn't know yourself.
completely because I didn't even know who I was.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Completely. Okay, so today I know who I am, but here's the thing. It occurs for me that because I have abused myself so much sexually, that it occurs for me right now that it would be like a huge deal for me to actually make love to somebody. And I would have to feel so comfortable, and I would have to be able to be so vulnerable with the person that I am with. And it wouldn't be about the sex. It would be about everything else other than sex. And sex would just have to come naturally as an outcome of the relationship. Does that make sense?
I think it's beautiful.
absolutely.
I think that's beautifully said, and actually that's how it really should be. It's something, you just don't go and have sex. I've never done that, to just go and have sex. It's always, with my husband, it evolved around, the romance that starts through and the thing, and it just kind of happens and it rolls into, and that's feeling very comfortable with each other, and it just kind of happens. It's not all about sex. It's wanting that person.
Okay, but I'd like to say there's nothing wrong with just having sex. Sex for the sake of having sex, if you are connected with yourself and feeling good, and then from that place of already being connected with yourself, co-creating and having a sexual experience with another is called pleasure. And there's nothing wrong with that. But to have sex, to find connection with yourself, therein lies the misalignment, and it never works.
But I mean,
So-
you could pleasure yourself, right?
Certainly. But you can also have some co-creative experience with another from your point of connection first.
Oh, I'm
And I
not
think
celibate.
that-
I'm not celibate in that department.
Okay, well,
Thank
Pleasuring
you for
myself.
that
Eddie.
information. I
yes,
appreciate it.
Now we know where you stand, Steve.
Okay, so do you feel that, so when we go through these trials and tribulations, like what I described earlier, that I have gone through several times with relationships where we fall in love with somebody and then we fall out of love because to begin with, what we were falling in love with was an idea that was never going to come to fruition anyway. So do you feel that because people go through these trials and tribulations that human beings kind of build walls around themselves because they don't want to get hurt anymore? I mean, all of these relationships that I went through came with huge amount of hurt at the end. Huge.
On your side or their side?
Well, I can only speak for
Both.
me.
Both
I don't
sides.
know.
Both
I don't know about.
probably
I don't know
your
about them,
sides.
but I can.
Yeah.
I can tell you about my first wife. When we broke up, it was for me. It was a huge disappointment and hurt. I mean, I hurt like I thought I was going to die. My life as I knew it ended just in one sentence, and that was, Steve, I'm done. You're going to move out.
But Steve, were you
That one
fooling around with
sentence.
other women then, or were you just with her?
Pardon me?
Were you fooling around with other women, or were you just with your wife?
While I was with her, no, I never fooled around on her.
but before we move on, can Phil just answer the last question? We didn't really get his perspective, and he is the other man on the show.
Well, I can't remember what the question was, 'cause I'm 73 and my memory's not what it used to be. That being said, I have this philosophy. I think most people fall in love with the idea of being in love rather than falling in love with someone that they really want to connect with, be intimate with, and all that involves. I say to a lot of my friends that most marriages, it's been my experience, most marriages are marriages of convenience rather than marriages of lasting love. And that's why the divorce rate is so high in this country. Because as soon as the first obstacle arises, the first hiccup, right away, go to the divorce court, get a divorce, split the property, etc. And I think
So-
that's one of the,
Absolutely right.
In your experience in dealing with people in your age group, how could you define their intimacy needs? What are the intimate needs of men in your age group?
Well, I don't think it's that much difference for
Well, let
human
him
beings,
let him
period.
answer. Well,
I don't think we can categorize it into into an age group.
Well, let Phil,
Okay.
Phil, what do you think?
well, I think the intimate needs of, and I'm in my age group, I still have sexual needs.
Of
But I also have the need of being respected, of being responded to, of being nurtured, of being told that I'm doing okay, that I'm helpful around the house, and all those things come together, and that all those things combined, I think, lead to what intimacy is all about. Communication,
Are any of those new? I mean, as you have evolved and grown and aged, have you discovered that those are new, or have those always been conscious, ongoing, intimate needs?
Well, I think for me, they've always been ongoing intimate needs. I will say this, I have an insatiable appetite for sexual activity.
Okay.
Okay.
Good for
now, and I'm not on any kind of medication. So thank the divine spirit for that.
Great.
But I think we have needs from the time we come out of the womb till the time that we transition. And most of the time, those needs are not met for whatever the reason may be.
And do you think that your ability personally to have been able to express those needs of intimacy beyond your sexual needs have been good throughout your relationship, throughout the years?
Yes, I have many, many relationships, mostly with women, not intimate relationships with all these women, but I'm very close to the feminine psychic, whatever that may be. And that's because I find myself to be open, honest. I'm a good listener, whatever you want to call it.
And do
Okay.
you think you're representative of most men?
No.
No.
Okay, so what do you
Absolutely not.
think it is for most men? Because that's really what we're talking about. The
Because
gen-
I'm very comfortable in my own skin.
Okay.
I know who I am. I always say to people who are looking for happiness, I'm not looking for happiness. If you're still looking for happiness, obviously you haven't found it.
Are you able to communicate, Phil, to your partner or partners in the past, your specific needs? And I'm not just talking about sexual, but otherwise.
Yes.
Okay, do you feel that that's one of the reasons for your success in relationship?
That's probably the most reason for my success is my openness, my willing to listen, my willing to learn, my willing to understand, my willing to be compassionate. All of those things. For some, and I can't explain why I am that way. But I've been
It's
that way.
lovely.
So
It's
what do we
absolutely lovely.
say to people and our viewers specifically right now, whom are the type of guys, and there's a lot of them out there, that just clam up. They don't want to open up. They don't want to open their hearts. They're just protecting themselves to the hilt. What do we say to them?
Well, first of all, they have to trust themselves. And they have to be open to allow those people or incidents, whatever it may be, into their own psyche. I think most men are like a closed book. You know, they always talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll and watching the football games and having a beer with your buddies and all that. I've never done that. Don't ask me why. Never done that. I've been more comfortable around men or women, and I'm open. I have nothing to hide. I don't think I have any masks. I am who I am. You know,
Do you find you're more comfortable around women than you are around men?
either way, but I am very, very comfortable around women. It may very well be because in my lifetime I've had the occasion to deliver several babies. Don't ask me why. It's a
How
different story.
beautiful.
But I've
But
also
also-
spent a lot of time with women in terms of in my early years when I worked for a company called the Ortho Pharmaceutical Corporation, which made contraceptives and birth control devices for women. And during that period in my life, I began to understand the physiological beings of women, and I think that stood me well as I became a more mature man. So I'm an open book. You ask me a question, you get a straight answer. It's as simple as that.
So do you feel that your wife, obviously now Bonnie, who I've met, is very comfortable with you and you're very comfortable with her? You both feel very comfortable in your own skins. And obviously, if you're around all these women, Bonnie, your wife, is also comfortable with that. So which means she trusts you, which makes you really feel good because she trusts you.
Trust is a big part of our relationship, and in fact, it should be a big part of anybody's relationship. I think that's the cornerstone of a relationship is trust. If you don't have trust, that relationship, in my opinion, will not last.
I agree. Yeah, my husband and I, we were trusted.
And what does that really mean? What does that mean, trust?
Trust in everything.
I think it's really, really important because in my career, I travel a lot, and my partner never had any reason to ever not trust me. And one time he did, and it blew me away. It was like, wow, because trust is everything. And you know what, it would be, as a coach, it would be one of the things I address probably more than anything else. Just recently, I had a couple come to me, and she was over the relationship, completely over it. And she said, look, I'll come to the coaching because it'll be good for him to get himself sorted so he can move on to somebody else. It was really interesting because I was going to talk to you about this, Phil, too. The dichotomy in him and a lot of the other men that I work with is that part of them is that they need to be head of the family. They still feel that, so they're carrying dad still around in their head, who was very tough, these are farm people, very tough. It's a rough life out there, to move on, to make the money for the family, etc. And the other part is wanting to be intimate. Well, the other part for intimacy gets smaller and smaller and smaller as the changing economic times happen, and they need to go and make the money for the family, etc. So he became a lot like his father. Funnily enough, she became like his father too. And so here they were both acting out somebody else. And as I said, she came to the coaching wanting to move on and have him move on. Within 2.5 days, they went and had a dirty weekend, which was wonderful. And they just are forever grateful.
How beautiful.
So all they needed to do was just to sort out in their own self about trusting themselves again to be who they were. You see, couples coaching is like business coaching. It's got nothing to do with the business. It's got nothing to do with the other person. It's about the relationship you're having with you. When she saw this man redevelop into the man she married, she couldn't stop touching him.
Well, let me add another word to trust, because I think it takes both of these things to develop a great relationship. And the other word is feeling safe.
But you can only do that for yourself. You cannot look to another to make you feel safe. You have to feel safe with yourself, for yourself, and then attract another person who feels similarly. It's not another person's responsibility to make us feel anything.
I'm
it's
not,
our
I'm
responsibility.
not suggesting that, but I think everybody's responsible for themselves.
Yes.
To create that environment, to create the trust and create the safety, because without
putting themselves in a safe position, and I guess that's what
without
they're trying
creating
to
that,
say.
What happens? A good example would be what happens when two people get together. Well, let me just use my own example instead of two people together. So my own example would be. In the past, I wouldn't say that I would be safe for somebody to be with me because, first of all, I had a sexual addiction and a gambling addiction. So it doesn't matter what relationship I would be in, I wouldn't be safe. Because I couldn't create the safety for myself, I would hurt the people that I love the most. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense.
I would agree with that. I also think that I can't speak to Australia, but our society here in America has a prescription for how the society believes we should act, behave, lead our lives. And when you deviate from what is the societal prescription, or RX as I call it, then it creates all kinds of confusion. And we don't meet our expectations as imposed to us by society. Society says that in America, You go to college, you get an education, you find the love of your life, you get married, you buy a big house with a white picket fence, you raise your kids, you live happily ever after. Well, it doesn't work that way. Let's be honest. No.
In Europe, it's very, very different. In Europe, it's very, very different. And when you were talking about, and what I see is so many divorces in America, you just don't get that in Europe. I don't know if it's happening now. I'm sure it probably is a little bit more. But they stay together more, and they feel safe, and they trust each other, and the man knows what his woman's doing, and the woman knows what her, and they never have to follow each other. They just trust each other, and it's just a given thing, and it's just so much different than America. America is very superficial of what a marriage is, and they break up in a couple of years. Somebody says something, they have an argument, and next thing you know, they're divorced. And you say, what happened?
In some ways, I think that is actually giving our younger generation an opportunity to explore all of their options and to look within themselves outside of this society's constraints, because I think that there aren't so many constraints anymore. You know, people's lives are messy. And it's really out there. So, you know, people get to choose, and there's lots to choose from.
Absolutely.
Yes, I agree. And again, personal example, the fact that I've been married twice and divorced twice, my kids, I have 3 kids, and they certainly have been exposed to my way of life. And only one of my kids just recently got married. Just a few months ago, and they were in a relationship with each other for, I don't know, 7, 8 years. And my daughter just got an engagement ring just at Christmas, and they've been in a relationship and living together for like 8 or 10 years. And my son, my youngest, has also been in a relationship for at least 8 to 10 years, have 2 kids, and they're not married.
Okay. Well, I mean...
All right.
And those maybe are some good choices for them.
So maybe the institution of marriage is no longer as important as a byproduct of what we've been going through here in the last couple of decades.
Yeah.
I think what's really beautiful, I look at my parents, and they were together 60 years. And I so admired their relationship, their intimacy, their relationship with each other. They just adored each other right to the end when my mum passed away. And my dad, who is actually with me here this weekend, he's 89, and he still talks about mum like she's, you know, just around the corner. And it's just beautiful. It's that, you know, that giving of yourself, not only to you, but to another person. And of course, they had 7 children. When we get together, it's like pollution. So there's people everywhere, and they just adore it. It's just that beautifulness of that one relationship. But how many people do that today? It's, as you say, how many of us can tolerate somebody telling us that there's something wrong with what we're doing or who we are? And so we say, well, you have to go. I'll go and find somebody else that appreciates me.
Yeah, I want to say something about what Jamie said a minute or so ago about choice. Yeah. We have a lot of choices in our lives today. And what I found is that when you make a choice, the choice then controls the chooser. Think about that. You make a choice to get a divorce, that choice then controls you probably from then on. So every time we make a choice, we need to look at those.
What does that mean? Because I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, I think people make choices without really thinking what that choice is going to evolve to. Where's that choice going to lead me?
And then it manifests into something bad.
Yeah, well, it could be bad or good, right, Jamie?
Good, bad, or good.
Well, wait a minute. So you're suggesting that when people are choosing that possibly they're not consciously choosing and making that choice from, an educated perspective? I mean, what do you think that choice is coming from?
Well, I think there's a dichotomy. Those of us, people who make choices based on good logic, reason, or whatever, usually end up on a good path. People who make choices without thinking, on the spur of the moment, if you choose to do cocaine, that's not a good choice because that drug then controls you. Okay. So
what about the people that are choosing today, and there are many of them, to stay in their marriage because financially it is not a good decision to split up? Yet the marriage is such that they're truly not supporting each other in any loving, intimate, constructive way. What about that choice?
Well, that's not a good way to live for sure.
I agree.
Not a way to
That's
go.
However, a lot of people are, Jamie, I agree, a lot of people are in that situation. As a
Oh,
crazy
yes.
Yeah.
them
So
all
that's
the
a choice.
time, there's a fear of doing it on their own.
But that's a
And-
choice.
Absolutely.
and
And
that's a
they're there
choice.
for the children, or are they?
Well, so
Sometimes children are saying, please split up.
I think that really what we're talking about is not just making the choice, but taking responsibility for the choice that you've made.
Well
And
said.
there lies the difference, because people can choose, and people can also then choose to take responsibility for the choice that they've made. And I think there is a difference there. So
Being
yes, we
divorced,
must be
being
responsible for
divorced.
the choices that we make, because we
Because
can
we
only
make-
do that for ourselves.
And I think what we also have, we have a tremendous amount of lack of communication. That they don't have the time, or they don't give themselves the time. In fact, I was in a situation the other night where I was watching a husband and wife and this little kid, and the wife was around the kid all the time, and I could see the husband was kind of, it's not that he didn't like it, but he was totally neglected, like he wasn't even there. And I think this happens a lot, and I know a woman has to play a part of taking care of the children and taking care of the husband, and she has to divide herself. But at the same time, I think it's lack of communication between themselves, and I think they really, really need to get their kids to bed early and have some quiet time between themselves, so that at least they can sort themselves out and communicate back of a day they've just both been through. She's working or he's working or both are working, whatever it is. But you must have that communication, and I think that definitely is a choice. That's something they really need to do out there, is communicate with each other, because it might not be as bad as they think it is.
All right, well, I think we already going down this road, so why don't we just continue then and give our viewers some tips in terms of, from our own experiences and from what we've learned in our lives, that would make a difference for people creating great, fantastic, long-lasting relationships. Who would like to go first?
I would like to go first.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I would like to encourage people to really know themselves and love themselves and create the best relationship ever with themselves first and foremost, because that is the foundation for every other relationship that we go on to have, intimate or not intimate. So that would be what I would encourage people to do.
I agree totally, Jamie, because you're going to attract, when you have an amazing relationship with yourself, you will attract the other relationships that you want.
Yes.
and choose into your life, and of course then every relationship becomes amazing, the intimate ones and the non-intimate ones. But that relationship is about you. Feel good about you, get to cause. I was going to say that before, because we were talking about responsibility, and that is getting to cause around your world. Otherwise, when we leave a relationship, we're disempowered by blaming the other person for everything that went on. And we walk around, therefore, disempowered. And we start our next relationship disempowered, and it's not a good start.
I also think you can't look to other people. You can't expect other people to make you happy. It doesn't work that way.
No.
Yeah. People are looking for happiness in all the wrong places, right?
Yes, they are.
I'm looking in the bedroom.
Okay, one just came to me. Okay, so the one I want to share is, and I may have more, see the best in your partner always. Because as soon as the conversation is about judging them or fixing them, I mean, how many people out there, and this has nothing to do with age, want to fix their partner? Like the relationship is going to be great and fantastic as soon as they straighten up. And boy, do I know how she or can be straightened up.
There was a play like that. I believe it was called Honey, Honey, You're Perfect. I Love You, You're Perfect. Now Change.
Yes.
That's actually a play.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I think mine is kind of, I got married to a man that had 6 children and 2 wives. So when I got married, I married my husband, 2 ex-wives, and 6 kids. So it was quite a challenge. But how I made it work was that they were my stepchildren. I was not the mother, so I never played the mother role. So I always encouraged women not to play that mother role. And also, if there's if somebody like my husband will get suddenly mad for some unknown reason, I never took it on. I never yelled back at him because I wasn't mad. He was upset. So I avoided that by not taking on somebody else's problem. If they argue and they're upset or whatever, even the stepkids and they're all mad, whatever the case may be, I'm not taking that on because that's not mine. So I think that we start to get into an argument when we don't even know what we're arguing about because the husband's upset or the wife's upset. I think don't take that on. Just let them sort it out and feel comfortable within yourself where you're coming from. When it's cooled down, then you can ask the question of what's wrong, how can I help you? But I think we should not take it on and not take on stepchildren as being the mother. You're always the friend, you're always the woman that can help. And I think that and even to men, I think you just have to be careful how you handle that whole situation because don't take something on that you don't know anything about. You're going to have a problem.
Yeah, this one is coming to me right now. Just a recent relationship. And this is an important one, I feel. So when somebody's coming to you for support, and I think men are more guilty of this than women, speaking personally, that I don't need to fix anything. All I need to do is be there for the other person's support and love them. I don't need to fix their problem. I can just say, I know in my heart that you will find a way to get through whatever it is that you're going through.
Mm-hmm. And they will.
Well, I think what
But
you
I think
just
men has this, and I think Phil knows this, men has this tendency of, okay, so you're going to share your problem with me? I'll fix it.
No, I don't fix anything.
No.
I found out that I always say to someone who comes to me for advice or if I'm mentoring somebody, I always say to them, do you want me to tell you what you want to hear or do you want me to tell you what I really believe? And you'd be surprised. Most people don't want to hear what I have to say because I try to speak the truth from based on my own experience, my own life, whatever.
And you're right, they don't. You're absolutely
They don't want
right.
to hear
They
it.
don't want to hear the truth. So you tell the truth, they look at you like well, I don't like you now.
If they want me to tell them, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, this one we haven't touched on. What about the importance of forgiving and forgetting? Letting go.
Oh, definitely.
Forgiveness is a bridge to love. I mean,
Definitely.
it's so important.
What made you so smart, Jamie?
I think that we have so many inner resources, and that if we could just tap into them, we are all brilliant. We all know every single thing that we need to know, and everything we need to know is within us. And so if we could just look inward, we would have every answer we
So how do we forgive? How do we forgive somebody else, and how do we forgive ourselves?
Well, first we forgive ourselves, and then we have forgiven everybody else.
Yes.
Right.
And how do we do that? Can somebody give me an example?
I'm not a good example of that because I don't get upset. It would take an awful lot to get me upset. I don't get upset. I really don't forgive. I don't forgive anybody for their actions because I'm not responsible for what they've done. That's on them. It's not on me.
There you go. That's right. It's on them, not you. Always remember
I,
that.
I just say the word next. I just go, next. I don't do that anymore.
I always feel that nobody would ever do anything like that deliberately. So, and then maybe something was said in the light of fire or something, who knows. I forgive people. I always have, and I think exactly what Jamie said. You forgive yourself first. You know where you're coming from. You can forgive. And forgetting sometimes, I don't know about this forgetting bit, though.
Oh, I forget a lot of things. Sometimes it's convenient when my wife asks me a question.
I agree with you. How many times I've gone back into that room what did I come in this room for?
Someone once told me there is nothing as far away as 1 minute ago.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
So therefore, there's nothing I can do to change it, repair it, whatever.
So forgive it.
So just forget it and forgive it.
There you go.
Okay, so Phil, here's one for you. So do you celebrate your partner? And how?
I celebrate my partner every day, every minute, every hour of the day. I'm constantly patting her on the behind. I'm constantly telling her, this is what I say to her all the time. I say, Bonnie, have I told you yet today how much I love you?
That's
how
so
beautiful.
sweet.
I leave notes in the morning when I go to the gym. I leave her a note. that I love her. I tell her how much I appreciate her. When I take a trip, or when she goes out of town, I stick notes in her cowboy boots, in her suitcase, in her DOP kit, whatever. I'm constantly telling her and reinforcing my love and my devotion to my wife. And I'm a very, very lucky man.
Well, she's very lucky too.
You are.
She's lucky. There
very
should be
nice.
more like you out there, Phil.
I can't comment on that. So
Yeah, that's
My-
that's
my
that's
wife said it-
fantastic. All right,
my
so
wife said- go ahead.
what about what we talked about at the beginning of the show, which is practicing unconditional love? How do people, how our viewers can practice unconditional love? What does that look like?
Well, that's forgiving again.
Loving yourself first. You know, you love yourself. You love everyone. You feel good about yourself. You feel good about everyone. It is an inside
True.
job. It just truly is.
It's 100% true, Jamie. You're absolutely right. If
When
you're
I was first
stuck-
learning this, we were actually asked to stand in front of a mirror. And I found that really, really amazing. You just stand in front of the mirror and say, okay, would somebody buy from me today? Would somebody buy my idea? Do I feel enough in love with myself that I would be able to go and sell an idea today to anybody, to my son, to someone outside, etc.? And if the answer was no, what would I like to change to allow myself to feel better about me? And quite often when I'm lecturing, I'll say to people, I went and got a toilet roll and I wrote down all the things I wanted to change to feel better about me. And I started just changing 2 things a month. I started responding rather than reacting. And I started, and it's calming.
Okay, I'm
It's
sorry, I'm
actually-
going to have to cut you off because we're running out of time. So
All I'm saying is it's calming. It's
We-
very calm to feel good
Again,
about you.
love
We-
yourself.
we
Have
are
fun.
actually at the end of the show, believe it or not. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all of our viewers, and of course, Phil,
Thank
for
you,
being
Phil.
on the show, and all of our cast, and the people behind the glass, the technical crew. Thank you very much. And if you heard anything or you experienced anything today on the show that touched, moved, and inspired you, please go to livingconsciously.co and join our membership site so that we can assist you how to be in the greatest relationship in your life. Until next week, we love you all, and always be here, same time, same place, 3 p.m.
Thank
on
you.
Saturdays. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Bye.
Steve.
Bye.
Thank you, girls.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.